Plains Angels is an initiative of the Greater Des Moines Partnership that connects Iowa-based angel investors with early-stage growth companies throughout the Midwest.
So, the rest of the morning, 3 or 4 more topics we're going to go through. We'll take a short break to get our lunch together, and then we'll have a panel discussion. Probably go about 30, 40 minutes, and then we'll take a little break in between and get back into it this afternoon. Love all the networking. We're going to take a lot of breaks for that reason, because a lot of times you get just as much out of the networking as you do the sessions. So let's talk about one-pagers, which is not a very formal name, but if you look at your handout on the second page, there's 2 handouts you got. One had, the very first page said something about data room. Jerry and my handout's got in the wrong order, that's okay. Look for this document. It's got the logo Torsion Mobile at the top. Now, this is what we're going to talk about. So it's 1 page front and back. This is, I guess the best way to put it, this is the business plan somebody will read. How many of you have written a 30 or 40 page business plan? How many think your investors really read it and done? Now, we still want you to have one, right? Because it's for you. But when you're starting out looking for money, you don't know anybody, you don't know who is an angel, and you don't even know who isn't an angel, and you're still figuring out what an accredited investor is and isn't. If you said to me, Mike, I'm raising capital for a motorsports venue, which is pretty weird, pretty unique. There is a guy in town doing that, doing it well. I don't happen to plan on investing as an angel in a motorsports venue, in a racetrack. But I know people who would. In fact, I know somebody whose last name is very famous in the racing area, would be happy to pass it on. So what you want to be able to do is have something you can send to people that describes what you're doing without giving away any confidential information, without breaking SEC rules. We're going to talk more about that subject in just a second. And yet, it's enough for an investor to look at and say, is this something I want to invest in? Do I have any interest at all? Or if I'm a really nice Iowa kind of gal or guy, I might say, or I can pass on to somebody I know. So if you look through this, and Torsion Mobile's a company that was real. It's a startup here in town. I don't think it's still actively engaged. As a lot of startups, they don't always work out the way you plan. But what they did, and this was their document, and I have this as a Word document. So this is a really simple Word template. It's nothing fancy, but if anybody wants it, you just give me an email and I'll be happy to give it to you. But down the side, real simple, what do we do? What are key aspects of our company? And then paragraph by paragraph. And I'm going to tell you, this is the hardest document to write. It's much easier to write 20 pages than it is to write one concise page. Yet, if you're going to get into pitching someone, you've heard about the elevator pitch. So Mark is in an elevator, and he happens to be the CEO of some company, and I happen to know who he is, and I get stuck in the elevator, and he says, well, what do you do? Throw a pitch line. He goes, great. Hey, you got 10 minutes? Tell me more. This is the tell me more. This is the 5 or 10 minutes. And so, while I don't really plan to take you through every little bit, I want you to really think about, could you do this? Because if you're even thinking about raising capital, you need to be able to do something like this. And on the progression of documents you need to have to go raise money, this is probably one of the very first ones. Who are you? And why are you a viable investment? Why should I care, or why should I pass it on? You have a cycling-oriented business. I happen to know some in the cycling business. If I just have your name and I don't know a whole lot, it's really hard to connect to. But if I had something like this, I can say, gee, I know 3 people I could email it to. Now, is Drew in the room, Larson? Or, I'm sorry, Joe, Leo. Yep. Joe, are you in the room? Yep. Oh, Joe, I'm sorry, I said Drew and I'm thinking Joe.
It's all right.
Now.
There's worse people to be confused with.
Really? I didn't know that. Yeah, well, you're totally offended by me.
Maybe he feels that way when he's confused with me. I don't know.
Yeah, no memory.
That's all right.
Joe, I'm asking Joe up here, he's a lawyer here, but I'm wondering, because if you put the wrong things in here, you can't raise capital. So you've got about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll give you the hook.
Yeah.
But I want you to talk about what you can't do in here and why.
So let's keep in mind that the rules from a legal perspective on raising capital are in flux. They've changed very recently. People are still getting used to what those are. There are certain types of securities exemptions, the way that people raise money, that look very specifically at how you go out and raise capital, and specifically what you say to the market about raising capital. And you can foreclose some of your options. I think there was a question before about the 504 versus 506, which is just fancy lawyer talk for different rules that apply to offerings, that you can violate those rules based on things that you've sent out to the market, okay? So how you send it, where you post it, and all those kind of things. That's number one. And you know, what I would tell you as an advisor in this area is you don't want that decision made for you. If you consciously go out and make a decision that we're going to do this, we're going to send this piece of paper, we're going to post it on our website that talks about an offering that we're undertaking, and we do that consciously because we have a plan, then we're fine, right? That's what we want to be doing. What we don't want to do is make a mistake, send something out that now forecloses an option that might be viable for us. So that's number one. The second part of that is that anything that you send out when you're out raising capital, there's rules that apply to essentially any situation in which a company is raising money that are called anti-fraud rules. Okay, and to Mike's point about people saying that they might read your one-pager, but they're not going to read your 30-page business plan, people understand that at a very intuitive level. And so the idea is that you need to be very accurate with the things that you say in these one-pagers, because they create information that you could be liable for if it's either inaccurate, misleading in a material way, or if it sort of leaves out information that would be material to sort of explain, which to Mike's point is really difficult to do when you're trying to summarize your business in one page. And so that's the sort of the second reason why having an advisor who knows the red flags to look at should be helping you go through this. We certainly are not going to write this for you. You're maybe not going to be happy about the changes we suggest making, because as much as I try to be a business person first and a lawyer second, I am also a lawyer. So and I know those rules, and I'm trying to help you both sell your investment, but also at the same time keep you safe. I tell people this all the time. Our malpractice carrier spends more time asking about these private offerings that we do as a 60-attorney law firm than anything else that we do. So that should tell you that when an insurance company is concerned about something, and I'm sure some of you in the room appreciate this, the reason that they're concerned about it is because there's losses that are associated with it. So this is not just us being too lawyerly. There's reasons we're trying to keep you safe. So number one, securities exemption problems you can create for yourself. Number two, anti-fraud issues, that if you're presenting something in a way that's inaccurate or incomplete, you want to avoid that, because that's going to be, if you get sued by an investor, that's going to be exhibit number one, okay? The third thing is that if you're sending this out into the market, you need to make sure that you're not disclosing something that's confidential to your business, okay? So, a lot of times when you get into a deeper dive with an investor, you'll have at least some level of confidentiality or non-disclosure. I mean, that will be negotiated. And, at an early stage like this, a lot of investors, quality investors will not sign an NDA with you because they see a whole bunch of these every day. But before they take the deep dive, that's probably the time you're going to have that kind of conversation. So make sure you're not giving away sort of the secret sauce in this, and giving information that's not necessary for your investor to know, after the elevator speech, whether they're interested in looking deeper, right? So you're whetting the appetite of the investor, you're letting them know, are you an investor in this area? Is it something you're interested in? Without giving away so much detail that you've now, disclosed something that's confidential. So, and I think that a third party who's a little bit removed from it, such as an advisor, can help you make that determination a little easier. So,
Perfect.
Thanks.
And that comes back to one of the things I wanted to say. So the biggest purpose of this document is to get a phone call. So the last thing you want to do is tell them everything. You want to get them interested. You don't want to tell them. I know over here, Bruce, who works in the insurance industry. I think this might be interesting to Bruce. I don't know if he's an investor or not. If I answer all his questions, he has absolutely no reason to call me or send back an email. But if I tell him some things that are within the realm of believability, based on whether he knows me or not, but pique his curiosity, they might give me a call. And remember, at the end of the day, what you really want are really good discussions with real investors. And it's not likely this document will do that for you perfectly first time. It's likely you'll go through a lot more stages. But let's say Bruce doesn't have an interest, but he knows some people. He'll pass it on. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to get passed around. And the bad actor is going to get it and say, oh, I know 3 guys that are doing startups in that field. I'll send it to them as competitive intelligence, even though it's probably not the most ethical thing in the world to do. Emails go everywhere. Plus, keep in mind, the press might get it. Your ex might get it. List every person in the world you don't want to know what's going on and assume they'll get it. It's published on the front page of the New York Times as far as I'm concerned, from all the concerned. But its real value is to spur a conversation and to allow an investor to not have to figure out where to start in 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 pages of data. And to be honest with you, if you can't do this one page, then we're wondering if you can really get to the crux of your business. So my suggestion to you is that this is a great way to start before you ever do a long, deep dive business plan, or even if you have one, try to write it. And these guys did a really nice job. The guy who did this used to CEO of a publicly traded company, so he's done the big company thing, he's done the startup thing. And I think he and his partner did a nice job, even though, like I said, it's 5 years out of date. It's one of the reasons I like using it, and I do have their permission. So if you happen to know Christian or Richard, they will give you permission. But it's just a really nice way to start the conversation, because you've heard the thing about 118 meetings, and to get those 118 meetings, you've got to make a whole lot more connections. So any questions on the one pager? By the way, I guess I forgot one thing before I say that. The back page is just as important as the front page. One of the first things I was taught as an angel, as getting into the angel world, is we invest in people, not companies. Because these things aren't companies when they're first startups. They're just a bunch of people trying to solve something. And we've already heard the word pivot many times. Sheldon talks about pivot. Most of us have pivoted more than we want to talk about. It's the person running this company that's going to make the difference, not the idea. The ideas are very important. Yeah.
I had an observation and a question. I guess the question is maybe to Joe here. I mean, is there some sort of disclaimer language you can put on something like this?
I'm sure there is. Disclaimer language. Again, that's why this. Yeah, that's why line number 3. Please, and I didn't say it directly, but to that point, make an attorney read this. And with respect to all attorneys, find an attorney who's done private equity placement, because having a patent lawyer have to bill you to teach themselves how this works is a bad idea. And I can always tell the lawyers that have never done one of these, because I get the 5-page NDA in front of the 1-page document. It's like, no. My money, my decision, no, I'm not. If I'm looking at 10 of these a week, I can't sign your NDA and I won't. If you got secret sauce, don't tell me, because I'm not investing in secret sauce. I'm investing in a business that can make money and pay me back.
My other observation would be to put a publish date on this.
Sure.
You might update it.
That's a great idea.
Why you wouldn't want to do
What
that.
day? Yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you. Other questions? Okay, so the next section is the pitch deck. So Plains Angels is one of several hundred, if not thousand, angel groups in the United States. And if you came to the Plains Angels website and said, I want to pitch the Plains Angels, and this might be just a little counter if you're good at the pitch deck. If you're going to ask to pitch an angel group, go to their website and read what they say. Tej and I run Plains Angels. Like, hey, how many emails do we get a week? 3 or 4 a week. Hey, I want to pitch Plains Angels. Okay, did you look at the website? No. Can I pitch? Well, did you apply? No. Did you look at the calendar? No.
Will you please fill in the paperwork? No, that's too much work.
So I was asked how to talk to the new.
Just give me the money.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not, you're right, it is. So you will look like a rookie. Like you have absolutely no clue what's going on. Just show up and say, I have the greatest thing in the world, now what I right? So the new head of the business school at Iowa State, very, very brilliant man who's been both very successful on Wall Street and has a PhD and teaches in the business world for classes, just a brilliant guy, asked me to come talk to him about, because he keeps hearing from people at Iowa State, you can't raise money in Iowa. You can't raise money in Iowa, right? And this is one of my things that just drives me nuts. And so we were talking, and he said, the first question I have for you is, everybody keeps telling me you can't raise money in Iowa. And I said, well, define raising money. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, so one of the problems I get when people ask me that or say that, I say, did you apply to Plains Angels? And a comment I get, well, no, that's a lot of work. And I swear the guy almost spit his coffee out. If you can't do a financial plan, a business plan, a pitch deck, a cap table, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, why are a bunch of angels going to write you a $500,000 check? I mean, you got to think that through, and it is not the idea. So with that, let's say you get that invite. Let's say you get the note from Claims Angel says, Alan, you've been selected as one of 2 people to pitch on October 10. Go. Most angel groups are going to give you between 10 and 20 minutes to pitch. Some are as tough as 8. Some are a little bit more forgiving. Some have literally a bell, timer, bang, you're done kind of approach to things. Some are much more gentle about it. And they do it for many, many reasons, which I'm not going to get deeply into here. So to address that, this is, by the way, anything here today you can get a copy of. You want a PDF, you want a pitch deck, whatever. A lot of this stuff is sitting on the Plains Angels website and the Square One DSM website. And we're going to pass something out to you later today with some of those links and things. But this isn't our work. This 10-slide deck has been thoroughly stolen from Guy Kawasaki, who wrote a book called The Art of the Start, and now Art of the Start 2.0. Guy Kawasaki was the first product manager at a company called Apple, and the Macintosh was his first product he took to market. He has since become a very, very successful angel investor, and last I heard, if you're a nonprofit, Guy will come and pitch to you for the low price of $50,000. If you're for-profit, it's $100,000. That's the cost of getting the mouse because it doesn't like to fly. He has sat through thousands of these pitches. This is his pitch deck. We've modified it a little bit just to look a little more like, well, I put on a Plains Angel template, but this is from him. So this is as good as it gets. There's 1,000 pitch decks out there. I saw something today, $1 billion pitch decks. I'm like, great, whatever. Most of us, I've never seen a $1 billion company pitch to me, and I don't know about the rest of the guys. JD, see any $1 billion companies? You look at these all day long.
I'm still looking, Mike. I
Me
haven't
too.
found it yet.
I probably won't be in front of you working for a living if I do get to invest in a $1 billion pitch. So the first slide you want to have is what is the problem you're solving. And in current thought processes for angels, if the problem isn't one of the top 2 or 3 problems for that person, for that company, whoever you're pitching to. So if I'm selling, but the problem I'm solving is for a hospital, it better be one of the top problems they have. It better hurt really bad. So as an investor, I'm sitting here trying to figure out, not only do I understand the problem, but how big a problem is it? And do the customers recognize it? Do it from the customer standpoint. If there's one thing you take away from today, and I ask you to write it down, the letter I is not in the word entrepreneur. Nobody gives a damn about what you think. We give a damn about what your customers think. And the one thing that drives me nuts, and I'm just telling you because it's like, get your perspective on, we talked to Casey about his customers. When you talk to Casey Neiman over there with AgriSync, he does not talk about what he thinks. He talks about what his customers think. And that mindset will take you so far. And I can tell you, for entrepreneurs that can't get past the idea stage, many times it's because they're wrapped up with what they think. There's something wrong with that. Just understand it doesn't make a business. Nothing wrong with being passionate about what you do. In fact, it's wonderful. But the difference between a passionate idea and a business is getting out of your own head. So do everything in the customer's perspective and the investor's perspective. You're pitching this not to win a customer. You're not telling me how great your product is. You're pitching this to me and the others in Plains Angels to tell me what a great investment it is. That's the goal of the thing. So all of this is letting an investor know that this is a worthy problem and it actually has business need. So second slide, how do you solve the problem? This is not a product demo. It's not technology. We see some medical stuff once in a while, and I think the first thing we kind of want to do is, we'll do the due diligence on the medical later. Tell us what the problem is, tell us how you solve it at a high level. Maybe if there's a doctor in the room, as an investor, we'll get a little bit into it. But keeping in mind you've got 15 minutes and 10 slides, you're not going to spend a ton of time here. But how do you solve the pain and get to really the core of it? Don't spend a lot of time to the details of the tactics of how you solve it. Talk about the solution from regards of what happens after your product is used. We reduce, I was talking to a nonprofit the other day about a product they have. They reduced stillbirths in women in Iowa by 28%. Okay, you got me. Now I'm really interested. I don't even need to know how they do it, but that, just saying that, problem is stillbirths. The solution is 28% reduction through and this was a nonprofit, but it's still a pitch. Then you talk about how you do it. But again, very high level. The second part, we're talking about money slides. Money slides are, if you haven't got me by the third slide, I'd probably check out and I'd probably read my email on my phone at this point, which really is going to make you feel really bad. I don't personally, I try never to do that, but we all do it. How do you make money? How do you actually make money from this? And yes, it costs us $1, we sell it for 10, but it's also, we know where the customer is and who they trust. So if you are a world famous researcher, doctor that everybody knows, you probably can get into the CEO of Mayo Clinic and talk to her him all day long about this product. But if they don't know you from Adam, how do you get into the market? Your products in the bicycling world probably have to go through some channel of distribution. So as much as do you have a great product, do you have great access to the channels? Do you have a way to get the product to the end customer? So being able to talk about how you distribute your product, how does it get out there? What are your gross margins? We heard this earlier, but there's been a lot of talk. Well, JD, was at the beginning of this year when a bunch of people marked down their valuations in the big VC funds when they realized all these billion-dollar unicorns aren't billion-dollar unicorns, and the number one reason was something called unit economics. They spend more than they make. I don't know about you guys, but that one was third grade. You got to make more than you spend. So you have to be able to hit your gross margins. We have to understand what that looks like. And unique models, this is not necessarily good. They're bad. If you have to explain your business model to me, I'm already probably checking out on you because, like, if I don't understand, how will your customer understand this unique business model? People don't want to be taken into a whole new world of a way to buy. Oh, you pay on the amount of sunshine per week. I'm being silly, but you get the point. Per user, per site, per product, per service, something that makes sense. It's got to be something that's relevant. Again, you're going to be the new company coming in. You probably can't roll the ocean and change the way the world buys. All right, this fourth slide is when you talk about what's cool. Keeping in mind at this point, nobody in the room is going to sign an NDA. I'm just going to say it. I'm worn out on NDAs. I think a lot of us are. We just say no. So if there's something you have to have an NDA on, then you say, I can tell you this much, and then after that, there's an NDA. Because just like the one-pager, this 10 pages, these 10 slides will not get you a check. They'll get you a 3 or 4 hour meeting doing due diligence to dive deep. And if an angel or capital provider or fund manager wants to dive deep after this presentation, most of them will sign an NDA, gladly, because they want to make sure you're respecting your IP. But they can't until they know enough to say, yeah, I'm really willing to sign that document. Because most of us, to be honest, we take those documents seriously. And if I sign an NDA around travel insurance for Steve, I have to be very careful to talk to another company about travel insurance. I have to really think about that. If another startup were to come around me looking for capital or anything else, if I signed his NDA. So just understand, you want to talk about it, but you don't want to give away the farm. Now, if you already have a patent, fine. But again, this is another one, I'm going to say it again, talk to your lawyer before you do this. The lawyers are really worth every dime and more to keep you safe. Backup is great. Remember that that's something, I don't believe in handing out all the backup documents at the presentation because I want you to call me. If you're in my angel investor group, the first thing I want is a phone call or an email. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to try to get you interested to the point where you contact me. So if Tej is in the room and he's interested in enough to want to raise capital, put capital in the business, he's going to send me an email afterwards. He's going to call me and say, hey, could you send me that white paper you mentioned? So this is a selling process too. You want them to come back to you. Marketing and sales. This is the engine of most companies, is marketing and sales. The technology can be great and some of it's life-saving, but if you can't get it to the market, sell it, and make money, it won't save very many lives. So you've got to be able to do these things. An effective go-to-market strategy is not we're going to take 10% of the market in 5 years. This is how we're going to get our first 10 customers. This is the channel we're going to go through to do them. This is how many we already have. It's better to have some customers already than to not. So, and your leverage, because again, we're assuming you're going to a market where there's already a product, and even if it's a place where spreadsheets are what you're replacing, and a lot of us in the room have built products that replace spreadsheets, the spreadsheet's already paid for. How are you going to replace it? What's your leverage? Who's your competition? It's important to have competition, even if it's indirect. I just used the Excel example. Your competition may be something totally different, but there's competition. If there's no competition, nobody recognizes the need for what you have. So you'll want to talk about what that competition is. And talk about yourself, not the other guys. It's just a simple rule in business, and don't let them engage you in the other guy competition. Set new pitch, talk about why you're good. Where is the team? Again, we invest in the team. These days, if you're doing a startup that has technology in it, we're going to want to know there's a technology person in the mix. It doesn't have to be a true founder, but I think for those of us who've had some losses where the technology was outsourced, a lot of us are getting really pretty focused on you better have that technology person in the mix. And it's getting harder and harder to get good programming talent and keep good programming talent. And that makes the startup all the more fragile if they don't have that talent inside and they don't have the ownership of the code. And I can go on and on about that. And there are going to be holes in your team. A lot of times you're raising money because there are holes in your team. You don't have the 6 key people it takes to run it. That's okay, as long as you recognize it, but recognize it and make sure that the money is going to address it and you have a plan to get there. Somebody mentioned earlier not having a VP of finance or CFO. Yeah, I mean, early on you probably shouldn't. You probably should be using an outsourced service that's charging for 2 or 4 hours a month, but have a plan on when you think you get there. Projections, this says 5-year forecast, normal's 3. Some people ask you for 5. It's like a paradox, you gotta have 5 and I don't believe you. And they say it in the same sentence. Give me 5 years and I don't believe you. I think one of the best way I ever saw this was the first 18 months should really talk about what you really believe can happen. And the rest of it should speak to what you're pointing to. Are you trying to build a $10 million company or a $1 billion company? So it's more aspirational, because I know when people talk about the Valley right now, if you're not swinging for $1 billion market cap or $1 billion in sales or 1 billion users, they don't even want to talk to you. That's fine, get to know, move on. It was said earlier before, the worst word in the world is maybe. And we have a Midwest maybe problem in Iowa, and you don't want maybe, you want to know so you can move on to the next yes. Matt, out of the 100 and some you pitched, how many people actually said yes? Unit count on the number of investors, 20 or 30? 40?
26.
26 out of 100 and some. So there's a good example. He needed to get to about roughly 90 no's to raise his money. 26 yes, roughly.
And to add to a comment that was made earlier, where Iowans were polite, most people don't say no, they just never get back to you.
Right. But you got to be careful you don't burn your time living with the maybes and trying to chase them. Key metrics, all financial future reports are based on assumptions. Any cash flow projection, P&L projection, projected balance sheets are all assumptions. And a lot of us who've worked around financials a lot look at the numbers and immediately go to what are the assumptions under those numbers. How did you get to that number? Those are the things you really need to have, are the assumptions underneath. I'm not as worried that you don't perfectly understand balance sheet math. I'm worried that you understand that you made the following assumptions and you have some reason to believe it might be fact, or at least likely, versus just, I don't know how to pull it out. Where are you? What have you done to date? Where are you going? Use of funds. We'll get into more of this in a little bit, but you get into this dance of how much do you need, what's your valuation like. You've got to at least tell them where you are today. So when you're pitching, I think it's good practice to say, I'm seeking, I'm up in front of you today seeking $500,000 on a $1.8 million pre-money valuation. Okay, at least give me some perspective of what you're up to, because otherwise, as an investor, I can't look at that.
At what stage do you think entrepreneurs should leave it to the market to work out the valuation?
I never. I just don't think the market should do that. I mean, it's not a market. Not every investor gets to pitch for your valuation, and my motivation, Steve, to be honest, is get your valuation as low as humanly possible. If I'm just a capitalist, then the lower your valuation, the better I do per dollar invested. I believe you are the owner of your company and you should be driving what you think the valuation is and you should be telling me why.
Yeah, but let's say if I'm talking to, it's hypothetical, if I'm talking to 5 potential investors and one comes back with an amount they're prepared to, a percentage that they want to put that amount in. And then if I talk to the other 3 or 4 investors and get them to put a bid in like an open market, then in that case, the market is effectively creating value.
In a theoretical world, I agree with you. I think in the investing world, and we're going to talk about lead investors in a little bit, I can't remember exactly where it is in this deck, you need to have a lead investor help you set that valuation. And usually that competition is for the lead, and usually for the entrepreneurs raising money the first or second time, it's a competition to find one lead that will step up and do that with you. I mean, in a perfect world, I would love if that happened, but I don't see it happening. When I was in Seattle, what I saw was people would try to scoop you up and not let anybody talk to you. So they didn't want to compete. They absolutely, the VCs in Seattle didn't want to compete. They wanted to go, here, we'll take the whole deal. Or we'll take it, we'll lead it, we'll finish it out. This is your valuation. Because again, their motivation isn't letting it high. I know your motivation is. But to be frank, what you really need to do is raise whatever money you need at a reasonable valuation and get back to business. If you're spending most of your time trying to chase the biggest possible valuation, I'm already afraid your focus has been lost and you're not focused on the business. So, while I agree theoretically, just be careful that the message you're sending with that. That's why I think you should have something in your mind so that you know when you're going to say yes. Yeah.
Said another way, maybe it's early stage entrepreneurs, should they have their own term sheet to present to potential angel investors or seed round investors as opposed to expecting the
Chris, the question was, should we show up with a term sheet as an entrepreneur? What do you think of that?
It's not a bad idea. It kind of depends on who your audience is and how confident you are. If you're going to go meet with a fund, they probably have no real interest in your term sheet.
Right.
If you've got a lead already, or if you're pitching to a group of high net worth individuals, or maybe not, having a term sheet I think is a great idea because they'll be less sophisticated. You're kind of showing this, especially if it's market, right? If you're doing something really weird, again, back to my slide, don't. But having a term sheet, or at least those ideas, those bullet points in your head, is a good idea. Although I think if you're going to a sophisticated fund of some sort, they might be turned off by it.
I think, Paige, you wrote a post a while back that just listed out the 6 or 7 key bullet points of terms that are the most commonly negotiated terms in a first or second round seed or angel deal. And I think if you just look at those and said, you could say, here are these 6 bullets, and I wouldn't put them all on a slide per se, I'd just say this is what I'm raising. If somebody said, what are your terms? What kind of terms are you looking for? You should be able to list preferences for seed.
And Chris differentiated the scenario perfectly. When you're going to an institutional investor, those economic and governance terms will usually be defined by their paper, their charter, their philosophy. But in the early rounds, yeah, the economics and governance are so easy to come up with. You know, the 3 or 4 elements are simple enough to come up with. And I've run that conversation by the 8 angel groups in the upper Midwest region. They would be more than happy to see those initial starting points, as long as they're not hard and fast.
It makes it a lot easier to begin negotiation if you've got something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't go in and start, like for example, you don't want to go into an initial meeting and go to like registration rights. Let's get into something that's important, right? So a term sheet might have some of those things, but if your initial discussions, if you're getting into the weeds that deep, that doesn't matter. You'll get there, but start with what's
Gary, you got something you want to say?
Yeah. So my experience on raising as it relates to this is one, you might be looking for 700,000, but my strategy was to go out and say I was looking for 300, and then get multiple people interested in giving you 50 to 100, and turn around and say, hey, we have enough interest here that we're going to go ahead and raise the amount that we're raising, versus saying we're going to raise 750, and then 6 months later you only have 150, and then it looks like you're failing in that effort. And so you might get to 150 and you said you were raising 300. Next thing you know, all of a sudden you have 500,000 worth of interest. Then you can change that story up a little bit. You don't have to hard commit to saying the 300. The other side of being able to say 300 is that you don't back yourself into a corner by setting a valuation yourself. And so for me, what happened to work for me maybe doesn't work for everybody, but was to simply say, I'm looking for a lead investor. The valuation, I'm willing to negotiate, because what I'm really looking for is somebody that's strategic and can add value to my company. And so I'm willing to compromise a little bit on what that valuation is for the right strategic partner. And usually that got a positive response, and it didn't shut down the conversation because I had some astronomical valuation that I was putting out there in front of investors to shut the conversation down. So for what that might be worth.
So summarize what you're doing, how much you're raising, anything specific to that point, and then open it up for questions. That's really, at the end of the day, that's what that pitch should look like. And so just to summarize it, the key thing is be respectful of the angel group or the people you're pitching, know what their time limits are, read their rules, pay attention. But to deliver in their time frame, make sure you leave solid questions for them to ask going forward, so that they have a reason to contact you. Follow up. I'm kind of surprised how many don't even follow up. And we'll get into more of the pieces later, but if you stay within their boundaries, stay within their time frame, and leave them some things to ask, if they don't come back to you, they're just not interested. Move on. So they're just not. He's just not that into you. With a line from a TV show. Don't chase it. Go to the next one. So, questions on the pitch?
Number of slides?
Okay, the Guy Kawasaki rule is 10, 20, 30. 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. Let's say it again, 30-point font. I'm a 55-year-old male with massive vision problems. If I was sitting where Matt is right now, I could barely read that slide. Those are 22-point fonts, too small. The better rule is take the oldest person in the room, divide their age by 2. That's the font size. That's the smallest font. You put an older person, an older woman in the room, and you want to raise $100,000 from her, and then you piss her off because she can't read the slides. Sorry, but it's also a way to keep you from just writing a book on the slide. I've seen these pitch decks that are really cool, but they're meant to be read like this. Okay, they're meant to be read with 12-point fonts. That's fine, but don't put it up on there and ask Sheldon to read it in the back of the room. You can't.
I do 29 and a half, just if anybody's trying.
Thank you. 29 and a half. Mine's
I knew everybody was wondering.
Somewhere between 25 and 35 will cover us. I'm not going any farther than that. But you just got to be respectful of the audience. Again, get out of your head, get into the investor's head, get into the customer's head. Yeah.
Talked about local markets, and I think people like Edge talked about cash flow and cash burn and so forth. So I'm kind of curious, being a detailed person, 2 areas. One is the amount of money that the founders either have put in or are putting into the company, and what sort of is the local market, expectation for that, related to that, the cash burn in terms of employee salaries, any kind of observations people want to make about.
Yeah, it's a little outside the pitch, but
what's reasonable.
yeah, I mean, I think that how much money the entrepreneur puts in kind of depends on the entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur in the area and you've got a $5 million net worth and everybody knows it because you had a really nice exit, I'm assuming you've got some money in the deal. If you're 23 years old, straight out of college, you got $47,000 in college debt, I would hope you didn't put a whole lot into it. I hope you said I got $800 and a ton of time in it. So I think it's relevant. Cash burn, I can tell you if you're in the Midwest, we're much tougher on cash burn than we are on the West Coast. In Seattle, if you had a $200K a month burn there, they'd tell you it's too low. Out here, if you're $200K a month and no revenue, we go, what are you doing? It's also a bit relevant to the environment you live in. I mean, if you're in Seattle and you're paying $150 minimum for a programmer, and your mortgage is $7,000 a month for a small house that isn't that nice and it's not in a very good neighborhood, you need different cash. So I think you have to look at it relative to the environment. We've got people that are 3 or 4 person in a team living in basically a 2-room apartment together, a dorm room, to keep their expenses down. So I look at it from a relative perspective. I don't know if anybody else has any feedback on that, Chris.
I'd just say, regardless of whether it's low or it's high, be communicative with your investors or your prospective investors as to why and what you're accomplishing. A real tight, low burn with no progress is perhaps not as bad as a really high burn with no progress. But if you're burning real fast, but you're advancing and hitting milestones, that's okay. But you really do need to communicate, 'cause again, in the Midwest, those numbers, the first focus will be, wow, that's a big number. But if you say, but here's where we're going with it, I think that'll be persuasive.
Yeah, it is, it's not the number, it's the why.
I'd address it for the entrepreneur and or the founder. It's not always necessarily about how much they put in, but if they're all in, you can generally tell, one or two meetings, where their commitment level lies as well. And if they're hedging bets, or there's nothing wrong with having an income or a job while you're doing something, but with the commitment to be all in, maybe they're not even paying themselves salary, maybe they quit their job. You can tell the ones that are passionate, that are driven. So it's less about their ability to write a check, but more about the fact that they're totally committed and they're taking the risk, maybe by not even having the income while they're developing as well. And then the other piece of it is that the burn is all relevant. Maybe they're developing a product, so they got a huge 6-month burn, they're raising the capital for that, and they need resources for that or something like that. So each one's different. But I don't think there's a litmus test on entrepreneur or founder having to write a check.
I've made the mistake before of burning cash while trying to find a product market fit. And so this time round, we get a product market fit before we burn any.
Yeah, there's a startup here in town called Rocket Referrals. They spent the first 9 months looking for a problem to solve. They didn't go into this saying, okay, I got a product. They said, let's go find a problem. And it is, again, are you starting a business or are you doing something that's cool for the sake of being cool? And we were interviewing Ben Milne a couple of years back, and it was in a big auditorium, and somebody in the property said, what do you consider market validation? And Ben said bluntly, a check. Money. That was his market validation, and anything before that really. So I mean, it's really a perspective. Do people want to buy what you have to sell? I know it sounds ridiculously simple, but there it is.
I think another way to put it is the money that's being spent possibly going to create revenues or acquire customers? We've seen deals come through where all of the funds that were being raised from Plains Angels were going to go pay the credit card debt that the founders had accrued prior to coming to the investors. No, of course that's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. All right.